Phases and processes of curriculum development. For today, we're going to talk about developing the curriculum, and in particular, we will focus on answering two very important questions. The first one is, what are the phases and processes in curriculum development? And question number two, how do curricularists plan, design, and organize the curriculum? These are the questions that we will answer in this session. Let us start by defining what curriculum development is. What is curriculum development and why is it important? Let's take it from Ralph Tyler himself. He is known to be the father of modern curriculum development, and he describes curriculum development as a process of selecting, structuring, and sequencing learning experiences to bring about intended learning outcomes. In other words, curriculum development refers to the systematic planning, design, implementation, and evaluation of educational programs and learning experiences. This is according to Ornstein and Hunkins in 2018. Therefore, it is noteworthy to always remember that curriculum development is essential so that there is alignment in content, pedagogy, and assessment with educational goals. Now, there are four phases of curriculum development. The first one is curriculum planning. This is followed by curriculum design and organization. Third, curriculum implementation. And fourth, curriculum evaluation and improvement. Now, please take note that depending on your sources, curriculum evaluation and curriculum improvement may be taken apart. But for most sources, they are just lumped together since they are two very interrelated phases. Let us talk about curriculum planning, curriculum design and organization, and the rest of the steps. We will just briefly define them to give you a clear idea about what each of these phases are. First is curriculum planning. Obviously, it is the initial phase. It is the start of the entire curriculum development process. This is the phase where goals, objectives, and content are determined based on learners' needs, societal demands, and available resources. It involves identifying what should be taught and why. Now, after curricularists are done planning a curriculum, then it's time to design and organize it. Now, in the design and organization phase, we are looking at the structuring of content and learning experiences in a coherent and logical manner. It includes selecting and arranging subject matter and learning activities to achieve the intended learning outcomes. So, from the word organize, this time the content, which was already determined during the planning phase, is now arranged sequentially or logically. Let's move forward to the third phase, which is curriculum implementation. Now, after the planning, the designing, and organization, it is obvious that the next stage is the curriculum implementation. Now, at this phase, the process of putting the planned curriculum into practice takes place. It focuses on teaching strategies, the role of teachers, and the interaction between learners and instructional materials. The fourth one is curriculum evaluation and improvement. So, after the curriculum is implemented, we all need to look at the curriculum and see what are the things that can be improved on. At this phase, we assess the curriculum and check if it is able to achieve the educational goals that it is set or intended to achieve. It also involves looking at feedback and checking learning outcomes to see if it does align with or serve the function of what it was intended to measure. And finally, revisiting the curriculum based on findings to ensure continuous improvement. Now, for this session, we will delve deeper into the first two phases. The first one being curriculum planning, and the second being curriculum design and organization. Now, again, previously we talked about curriculum planning. It is the phase that answers the question rather, what are to be taught, why do we need to teach this, and how. Now, we start every curriculum planning phase by looking at the components of curriculum planning. And these are the following. The first one is philosophical foundations. Now, these includes values and educational principles and beliefs that influences one's views on the purposes of education, the nature of learners, and the role of teachers. Now, some of the more common educational philosophies include, but are not limited to, progressivism, which is more student centered, perennialism, which focuses on the teaching of enduring ideas, and essentialism, which focuses on core knowledge and skills, or the so-called the essential skills that people have to learn, or learners have to achieve or develop in themselves. Aside from philosophical foundations, during the curriculum planning phase, we also look at another element, which is learner needs. This emphasizes designing the curriculum based on the developmental, emotional, social, and academic needs of students. It considers the following: students' age, background, learning styles, and any particular needs or interests that these group of learners may have. A curriculum that addresses learner needs helps improve motivation, engagement, and of course, the achievement of learning outcomes. Third element to consider would be societal demands. Now, we cannot take apart the school or the entire process of education from the society. So, in this phase, the curricula looks at the changing needs of society and considers this in developing the curriculum, such as technological advances, economic trends. For example, what are the job market demands? What skills will learners need to develop by the time they graduate in order for them to be able to thrive in a very highly competitive job market? Cultural values, definitely, and these varies from one community to another, and social values, such as environmental sustainability, diversity, global citizenship, and the like. Now, this is very important because it ensures that education remains relevant and prepares learners to contribute meaningfully to society, to become responsible, useful citizens of the community and society. Global citizens, in fact. Fourth, we have content selection. Now, this involves choosing knowledge, skills, values, and attitudes to be included in the curriculum. Now, there is a criteria to follow for content selection, and this criteria includes the following parameters. First, you have significance, the importance of a particular content to learners and the society. We also have validity, the truthfulness and accuracy of this particular knowledge, skills, values, and attitudes. Then we have utility, which literally means the usefulness of this content, skills, values, and attitudes in real life contexts, and the interest level for learners, which means to say, how relevant is it, or how important or interested our learners would be if we include certain knowledge, skills, values, and attitudes in our proposed curriculum. Now, the goal of this particular phase is to ensure that the curriculum is meaningful and appropriate for the learners. Fifth, we have resource allocation. Effective curriculum planning requires identifying and distributing the necessary resources, such as human resources. So, we're talking here about teachers, school support staff, material resources, the availability of books, digital tools, and equipments, and of course, time and financial resources, because, like it or not, any New curriculum that gets developed will have to require resources of various kinds. Proper resource allocation ensures the feasibility and, more importantly, the sustainability of the curriculum implementation. Okay, from the planning phase, we now move forward to the second phase, which is the curriculum design and organization. In this phase, we should remember to have answers to the question: how should the content and learning experiences be presented? In what order? In what fashion? And what are the reasons for such? Now, we think of approaches to curriculum design when we think of the curriculum design and organization phase. The first approach we have is the subject centered approach. We also have the learner centered approach. And finally, the problem centered approach. Now, let's talk about each one of these in these next few slides. Obviously, when we say subject centered approach, we focus on the organization of knowledge by subjects or by subject matter. For example, when we look at a curriculum that is subject centered, we cannot help but notice that the way the curriculum is presented, and in fact, the way the curriculum is taught, is there is focus in the division or segregation of the various disciplines or subjects. Example, there is a specific set of competencies and skills to learn for math, science, history, and the like, and there is a strong emphasis on content and skills mastery for each of these different subject areas. And number two, we have learner centered approach. Now, in this approach, we have to look at and prioritize the needs, interests, and experiences of the learners. This curriculum is designed to promote personal growth and active participation among learners, often integrating real life tasks and allowing for student choice. So, from the name itself, learner centered approach focuses more on the student or the learner, not so much on the subject matter itself. The third one is the problem centered approach. Now, in this particular curricular approach, the curriculum is organized around real life problems or themes that require critical thinking and problem solving. This encourages students to engage with issues that are meaningful to them and their society. And in this curricular approach, the curriculum is often presented using interdisciplinary content. So problems are solved using the knowledge and skills that learners have acquired in two or more learning areas or subjects. Now, here is a matrix or a table comparing the different approaches to curriculum design to give a better and clearer understanding of what these means. So if you can see on the first column, you have the different approaches, followed by the focus of each of the approaches, the role of the teacher, the role of the learner, the organization of content, and the advantages of each. Let's start with subject centered. Obviously, the focus is on the academic disciplines or on the subject. Okay, the role of the teacher is a knowledge expert. The teacher provides the knowledge, teaches the skills, while the learner is a passive receiver of information. Okay, the advantage of this is definitely mastery of foundational knowledge and skills because there's focus on mastering each subject area's content and skills. Now, compare that with the learner centered approach. Here, it is a learner's needs, interests, and experiences that are given focus. Okay, and the teacher this time is not necessarily the content expert, but a facilitator and a guide. The teachers allow students to take a more active approach in learning and in co designing their learning experiences. Now, how are the content or how is the content organized in this particular approach? Learner centered with learner experiences being given primal or optimal importance. Advantage of this one is that it encourages personal growth and it encourages motivation as well. Now, in the problem centered approach, we are looking at a curriculum that focuses on real life problems and allowing students to think of probable solutions, analyzing, proposing solutions to these real life problems. The teacher this time serves as a coach who will guide the students as they explore the causes, effects, and solutions to the different problems or to different themes. Then, obviously, the curriculum is presented around themes or around problems, and the advantage of this is real life learning. The application or transfer of knowledge and skills to actual or real life situations, and definitely this will create more meaning of for our students for the problem centered approach. Okay, now aside from the approaches of curriculum design, we also have the types of curriculum design, and that is a walk ourselves through each of the different types. First one, you have the discipline based curriculum design, wherein content is organized around traditional academic disciplines, as in per subject area, and these subject areas are separate and distinct from each other, again, with specific knowledge, skills, and competencies that need to be developed and mastered by the students. The second is the integrated or interdisciplinary curriculum design. And from the words integrated and interdisciplinary, we mean a combination of two or more subjects to show connections across disciplines. For example, teaching science and math together in order to study about environmental issues. Now, this approach obviously helps our learners to see the relevance of knowledge across different fields. So that they know that whatever knowledge and skills they acquired from one subject may be transferable to another subject. The third one is the thematic curriculum design. Okay, this centers learning around a theme or a big idea such as sustainability or a community. Subjects here are linked under the theme, helping students make connections across content areas in a meaningful way. So it's quite similar to the second approach, but the focus here is on the themes. And finally, you have the spiral, or rather, second to the last, you have the spiral curriculum design. From the word spiral, we're talking about spiral progression. This is actually introduced and popularized by Jerome Bruner, and the design revisits the same topics multiple times, not only within the current school year, but even as the student progresses and gets promoted to the next grade level. So, for example, grade 1 students will discuss and learn about nouns in their English class in grade 1. In grade 2, they will still continue to learn about nouns up until grade 6, up until junior and senior high school. However, the level of complexity, the scope, and the breadth will have to vary or increase also as they level up in their schooling. Now, this focuses on the importance of building on prior knowledge and deepening understanding over time. And the last one is a so-called backward design. Okay, the backward design starts with the end goals or the desired learning outcomes in mind. Okay, what exactly does the teacher want the students to achieve? Or how would the teacher like the students to prove or provide evidence for their learning? If the teacher would like the students, for instance, to be able to cook a particular dish, then the teacher will have to plan the necessary content and skills that the students will have to learn in order to successfully demonstrate the skills needed for cooking. So that is what happens in the backward design. The teacher first thinks of the end goal or the desired learning outcome and then plans assessment and learning activities to achieve them. Now, here In this type of curriculum, there is alignment between objectives, assessments, and instruction. Now, moving forward, we have another matrix or another table here that shows us the relationship between the types of curriculum design and the approaches to curriculum design. Okay, first, the discipline based type obviously focuses on the different subject areas and is organized as distinct subjects or disciplines. It is advantageous because it develops content uh, mastery, and it is related to the subject centered approach. The integrated or interdisciplinary approach connects two or more subjects, and it is presented as like an integrated or blended presentation. The advantage here is that students are able to transfer the knowledge and skills they have acquired from one subject to another because they are looking at, or because the curriculum looks at similarities in skills, competencies, and even knowledge across disciplines. And finally, the approach that is reflected in this type of curriculum design is the problem centered approach and at the same time the learner centered approach. We also have the thematic approach from the words themes. The curriculum is presented by themes. Okay, this is good because the teacher or the students are able to see commonalities not only among the lessons, but more importantly, among the different skills that they have learned from the different courses. They are able to apply these foundational skills in carrying out tasks in not just one subject, but in as many subjects as may be possible. This, the thematic curriculum design is very much closely related to the learner centered or problem centered approach. The same is true with the spiral curriculum design. It is still very learner centered or problem centered in approach because, from the name itself, it looks at revisiting topics at increasing levels of complexity from one, not only from one quarter to another, but also from one grade level to the next. And then this is actually a very good curriculum design because it allows students to master content and skills as well as attitudes necessary for learning uh, a particular discipline or a particular subject. And it reinforces retention as well as helps to scaffold learning. Now, the backward design is focuses on planning with the end in mind. We need to say the teacher will first have to determine what exactly the students need to achieve or develop, and then from there, plan the instructional activities as well as the assessment that will help the students to present evidence of learning in their respective classes. Now, this is very much problem centered or learning centered as well, just like the thematic and the spiral types of curriculum design. Okay, let's take a look at real examples so that we can apply what we have learned about approaches and types of curriculum design so far. Now, here is one example. A grade 6 science class is studying climate change. The unit combines lessons in science and in math. Okay, for science, you have weather patterns, greenhouse gases, and for math, data interpretation and graphs. For English, writing persuasive essays. For social studies, effects of climate change on global communities. Students work in groups to create an action plan for reducing carbon footprints in their school and community, which they will present to local stakeholders. Now, let's ask ourselves the questions. What approach to curriculum design is reflected here, and what type of curriculum design does this represent? Now, what do you think? Please make brilliant guesses, and the correct answers are it is a problem centered or learner centered approach, and it shows integrated or interdisciplinary type. Okay, so obviously it addresses a real world problem, and students need to integrate their knowledge and skills from multiple disciplines. It also emphasizes collaborative learning, application, and relevance, which are characteristics of both problem centered and learner centered approaches. Okay, another example. A high school history curriculum and textbook are organized chronologically by historical periods. So it starts off with the ancient history, medieval history, and modern history. Each unit focuses on major events, key figures, and timelines. Students are assessed through factual quizzes, essay writing, and periodic exams. Instruction is mostly based on lecture, textbook reading, and teacher led discussions. Now, what do you think is the curricular design reflected here? And what type of curriculum design, or what do you think is a curricular approach reflected here? And what type of curriculum design does this situation represent? And the answer is for approach, you have the subject centered approach, and it is a discipline based type. Obviously, the curriculum centers on a single subject area, which is history. It follows a traditional or linear structure that aims for mastery of content. Instruction and assessment are teacher directed, which are hallmarks of the subject centered approach and discipline based curriculum design. We now move forward to discussing the components or elements of curriculum design. This is actually based on Ralph Tyler's model, which was presented back in 1949. Now, when designing the curriculum and organizing the curriculum, we always have to look at the following components or elements. First, the intended or desired learning outcomes, also known as objectives, or in other words, what will students need to achieve? Okay, followed by content or subject matter or the subject area that needs to be taught. The learning experiences, this refer to activities and interactions designed to facilitate learning. And finally, evaluation or assessment, which are the methods used to assess the effectiveness of the curriculum and student learning. Curriculum design and organization also involves curricular mapping. Now, what do we mean by curricular mapping? Just like a map, it is used to guide the teaching and learning process. It is, in fact, a reflective process of identifying what is taught, when it is taught, and how it aligns with the standards or competencies. The curriculum map, therefore, refers to the tool itself that is used to visualize and coordinate the parts of the plan across the curriculum. And this is very important in the curriculum design and organization phase. Now, here is an example of a curriculum map. This one is a, a curriculum map for a grade 8 MAPE class that focuses on music of the Southeast Asian region. Kindly take a look at what you have there. Okay, what can we find in the curriculum map? Of course, you have the content. You have content standards, learning competencies, essential questions, essential understanding, okay, the different activities, assessment tasks, etc. Now, this is very important so that the teacher is able to better design specifically his or her syllabus or lesson plans. And finally, let us remember that the curriculum planning, design, and organization phase is a very carefully thought out process or processes. We don't just, this is not just like a hodgepodge phase. This is well thought out and in fact follows the seven principles of curriculum design. First, curriculum has to have alignment. There has to be consistency between learning objectives, content, instruction, and assessment. Next, relevance is very important. It should connect learning to real world issues and it should be relevant or important to students' lives. There has to also be progression, which is the third principle. It should build from basic to complex concepts for logical and effective learning. Number four, there also has to be balance. There should be equal emphasis given to the different subjects and learning domains. Breadth, number five, is also just as important to consider because learners need to be exposed to a wide variety of knowledge and perspectives, often translated as content, skills, and attitude. Number six, coherence. It should ensure logical connection and continuity within and across subjects. We need to say lessons have to be taught logically or sequentially, and the connections must be seen not only within one subject but also across disciplines. For example, you could not possibly have your students do division first unless you've already taught them how to do addition. And finally, number seven is flexibility. The curriculum must be able to adapt to students' needs, context, and emerging educational demands. Now, planning, designing, and organizing a curriculum is a process that is very crucial to implementation and ultimately evaluation. It it is crucial because the achievements and success of our students hinges upon these first two phases. Now, to end this session, I would like us to read this quote from an educator, Lillian Katz. Curriculum should help children make deeper and fuller understanding of their own experiences. Because the moment students see the relevance of what they're learning to their experiences, and the moment that they understand their experiences, then we can truly say that learning has taken place. And that's what you've learned for today. Thanks for joining, and see you in the next learning session.